You are a worthless, bitch-ass nigga.
You're lying. I'm Spider-Man.
Your life literally is as valuable as a summer ant. I'm just gonna stump you. You're gonna keep coming back. I'm gonna seal up all my cracks. You're gonna keep coming back. Why? Because you keep smelling the syrup, you worthless bitch-ass nigga. You're gonna stay on my dick until you die. Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now. Because what are you here for? To worship me? Kill yourself. I mean that with 100%, with 1,000%.
I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and man, I really wish I liked it as much as the first one. The first one is iconic to me. The animation is amazing. The characterization of Miles and Peter B. Parker is exactly what I want out of those characters on screen. And it's an amazing Spider-Man adaptation that's wrapped up in a well-animated package with a cast of amazing voice actors and well-written comedy. The only aspects of this that I think carried over to the sequel are the fantastic animation, voice acting, and the characterization of Miles Morales. In this critique of the film, I don't want it to seem like I hate Spider-Man, like I hate the multiverse, or that I even hate these films. I just wish to hold them to a higher standard because the first one is a masterpiece, in my opinion. I think that the writers of these films are very talented people, and all the people at Sony are very talented and can possibly make some of the greatest animated comic book films. Now, on to the analysis. If you're part of the camp of people, which I mostly disagree with, that say that having Peter die and then having his other self have bad luck in his marriage in the first film, only to uplift Miles as the protagonist, lowers Peter's value as a character, then man, you're gonna hate this movie. After watching Spider-Man No Way Home and the first Spider-Verse, you may be thinking that Peter's Spider-Man would be at the center of the multiverse, or that he'd at least have a more active role in it. Especially given that Spider-Man 2099 originally left his universe to go interact with another classic interpretation of Peter Parker. It would only seem logical that that was the evolution. But if you expected any of that, you're gonna be disappointed. And if you're like me, and you just wanted a fun multiversal romp with Miles as the main character, jumping to different universes, fighting alternate villains, and meeting other Spider-Men that he can relate to, then you're probably gonna be disappointed too. Peter in this movie is reduced to nothing but a father. His only character trait in this film is that he is a father. He carries around a baby for 100% of his screen time, and it is inseparable, the child versus him as characters in this film. This is a change I would usually accept after one more day took away any chance for Spider-Man to be with MJ, but this just feels overdone. There is now nothing to Peter Parker's character outside of the fact that he is a father and the original Spider-Man who dies to give somebody else some character development. Or just becomes Spider-Man himself, but still dicks down to Miguel. This shows the importance that Miguel already has in this story. Keep that in mind. In this movie, Gwen is now nothing but a conflicted runaway who is torn between two guys, despite Haley Steinfeld's amazing emotional performance. And not to mention, the main character himself, Miles Morales, doesn't appear until the 30-minute mark of the film, which in my opinion is a massive problem. This trio from the original film is many people's favorite part of the original, and if you expected Peter to finally acknowledge that Gwen died in his universe and that he is happy that she is living as a young, happy teenager again, then you'll be disappointed there too, because he doesn't. Despite the fact that this movie potentially confirms that Captain Stacy died in his universe, he still doesn't talk to Gwen about it. This movie also makes the massive mistake of linking itself to both the MCU and the comics, overcomplicating this cosmology in the worst way possible, to the point where it tangibly affects the writing. Here is some evidence of this movie connecting itself to the multiverse, of the comics and of the MCU. In the film and trailers, Miguel refers to another variant of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange that exists on Earth 199999.
You can never be part of this.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 199999.
This Earth was originally confirmed as the MCU Earth in a Marvel Comics guidebook, meaning that Miguel's knowledge is based on a view of the overall cosmology, not just limited to live action and animated adaptations. This disparity between the numerical designations such as Earth 1610, now referring to Miles Earth in the Spider-Verse films, rather than the classic Ultimate Universe, can also be easily explained as their perspective on the multiverse affecting their numbering conventions. For example, if you were the first Earth to discover multiversal travel in our reality, you would probably call yourself Earth 1, unless you found exterior evidence signifying that our Earth was not the first Earth. This would explain the difference in numbering between the MCU films calling themselves Earth 616 and the rest of the material calling it Earth 199999. From their perspective, they are the main Earth, in this case 616. From a Marvel perspective, 616 means Prime Earth, and multiple continuities believe that they are Earth 616 at its center, but this is just their perspective. Further evidence backing this up is that Insomniac Spider-Man is present in this multiverse, who also directly crossed over with the comics during Spider-Geddon. This would mean that this movie is now inseparable from the Marvel Comics cosmology as well as the MCU, and even if you can't hold previous MCU and comics titles to this movie's world building, you're going to have to from now on, because they are now irrecoverably connected. Well, what does all this mean? Well, it means that Miguel has a level of knowledge over that of the entire Marvel Cinematic Cosmology and potentially even the comics, and that he views the multiverse from the same lens of being outside of the canon that the Marvel guidebooks themselves do. And through all of this knowledge that he has cultivated in his life, he created a device that can transport you through the entirety of that cosmology that, again, potentially connects to the comics. And if a Spider-Person is wearing this device while jumping universes, it also prevents glitching and incursions. This piece of wristwear is more strong than anything Kang has been shown to build. Incursions are supposed to be the big threat of Marvel Phase 5 and the Multiverse Saga. For a random variant of a character that's not even a member of the Avengers, with no narrative significance outside of what this movie gives him, to create a device this strong is some of the most jaw-dropping writing I've ever seen. Miguel in this movie is a fraud who misunderstands the multiverse based on his own trauma, all because he was too stupid to put on the device he had already built in order to prevent the incursion. In the film, it shows that he also gave a device to Peter B. Parker who could help him with the incursion when it happened on his Earth, meaning that at least a version of Peter he traveled to, met, gave a version of the device, and came back either using that version of the device or his own. So, either he has the resources to build these devices that can transport you through the multiverse and stop incursions, and he just didn't wear it, or he only made one and he gave it to Peter and just again, didn't build another one, and it's his fault that the incursion happened anyway. And now, he holds the entire multiverse to this standard that he could not even hold himself to. Are you understanding the problems in this movie's writing yet? Putting Miguel O'Hara at the central point of the multiverse when he is not even the main Spider-Man or the central figure of the Web of Life and Destiny, such as Madam Web in the comics, has now created this predicament. Miguel O'Hara is now the strongest person in the multiverse, with knowledge above that of even Kang the Conqueror, and can build a device where the TVA probably couldn't build, and yet he is still this stupid, he is still this flawed, and he still has such limited knowledge that it creates the entire conflict of this movie. He blames himself for the incursion that happened in his timeline, which is not the case. It is his fault, but it's not because he traveled there. It only happened because he didn't use the resources he had already had in his life. If this was the lesson he extrapolated instead of McKinnon event, he would have instead not had a chip on his shoulder, he would have learned greater knowledge of the multiverse, and he wouldn't be hunting Miles. Then the central plot of this movie would have only been surrounding the Spot, and there would not have to be a two-part film that we would then have to bog down partially with this whole narrative of Miles Morales versus Miguel O'Hara and which person is right in their view of the multiverse. None of that is necessary if Miguel would just use his knowledge and actually be correct. His whole philosophy is built on a mistake he made because of a device he had already made, meaning that he has the power to passively stop incursions if he had just put the damn thing on. And this isn't a small nitpick, this is the fundamental core of the plot of this movie. Again, if this didn't happen, Miguel would be a happier, lighter person with a family that could have still lived in that universe. He would have sought higher understanding in the multiverse and realized that things aren't as limited as they are. And he wouldn't be hunting Miles Morales in this film. Spider-Man 2099 still could have been in this movie and been an edgy anti-hero vampire man that all of you love, but he does not have to be this poorly written. The way that this movie makes it out to seem is that you need to ask Miguel O'Hara for consent to do anything in the multiverse because he is the highest power imaginable. There are cosmic entities that exist in the MCU, such as Celestials, things like that, but all of them dick down to the creation and collapse of the multiverse itself, and yet here is Miguel O'Hara who can just casually transport between them. And it wouldn't be so bad if he was actually correct and this was just a case of Miguel O'Hara having some unfortunate knowledge that none of us know. But Miguel's own logic has been debunked in these movies. At the end of the movie, we see that because of Miguel O'Hara himself allowing Gwen to join the Spider Society, Stacy, Gwen's dad, decided to not become a police captain because she was running away. He felt so bad that he changed his life. He began to lose weight, and whenever she comes back, she says that he looks happier and healthier. Gwen's universe is now restored to a state where she may be able to actually live there again because of a disruption in the space-time continuum. And if you want to go back even further than that, first movie, Into the Spider-Verse. Penny Parker's robot is broken and has to be rebuilt before the second movie, meaning in her timeline there was at least a very short amount of time where Spider-Man could not exist. There was no spider robot to take her place, and there was at least a very short period where there was no Spider-Man, or at least when he came back he looked entirely different with that robot suit. This would mean that her universe didn't collapse because, well, she's still there in the second movie, despite being depressed. That is probably related to her comic book story and not because her entire universe blew up, because, well, she probably would have mentioned that. So Miguel's canon event logic clearly only refers to events that affect a Spider-Man's life, but if there is a possibility that things could go well, his philosophy completely ignores that. In an infinite multiverse, there is an infinite amount of possibilities that things could happen a different way. Every time you make a choice, an alternate universe is potentially formed where you never made that choice or where you made the alternate choice. There are so many potential possibilities in an infinite multiverse with as massive of a numbering designation as this. And yet, Miguel's logic seems so bound to this flawed narrative of you have to have a canon event, you have to have something that solidifies you as a superhero, you have to have something that defines you. Even though the events that defined him, including losing his family, he tried to prevent himself and almost did it. If he would have just put on the fucking watch.
Sue, Miles, I know you want to date that Gwen girl we saved the multiverse with, but have you even asked Miguel for consent first? See, he's like this multiversal vampire Spider-Man who you've never heard of, who is smarter and stronger than all of us. So we kinda gotta listen to him. Sue.
What? Peter, you're talking crazy, man.
No, it's true. See, I thought me and MJ breaking up was because of Mephisto's meddling, but according to Miguel, it was just a canon event. So Miles, if you want to date that quirky white girl who you already saved the multiverse with, you're gonna have to get past the guy who looks way too old for her, and make sure Miguel gives you the pass. Got it?
And with all this in mind, you may respond to me saying, well, duh, the movie needs conflict somehow. How is there supposed to be any fighting in it if 2099 doesn't have limited knowledge? Yeah, you're right. That's kind of the problem. If your whole movie conflict is built around one character being wrong, and not philosophically just because he isn't using the information in front of him, that's not a fulfilling narrative. Especially when there is legitimately a multiversal threat right fucking there in the form of the Spot, who is now going to have to be designated to a third act villain of the last movie of this trilogy, so that way they can actually give him some screen time, because he was spent only being a side character in this movie. What the fuck? Like I said before, this movie's cosmology connects itself directly to the MCU, the rest of the Spider-Verse, and potentially even the comics themselves. If the Spot is truly a threat to this cosmology, he should be the center point of the film. Wasting time with Miguel unironically hurt this movie's portrayal of the multiverse, and by quickly setting up a morally gray vampire Spider-Man with multiversal IQ as the center of the multiverse, you hardly get time to think to yourself, maybe this guy shouldn't be in charge since he has such a massive chip on his shoulder. You don't get a chance. The movie has too quick a pacing for you to think to yourself, why is Miguel in this position of power? Why are there no Spider-Men that are telling him, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. Spider-Man is supposed to protect people.
What's important is not standing by and allowing someone to suffer or die because you do nothing. If you don't get that, then you don't get the first thing about being Spider-Man.
In my opinion, the lack of any sort of Spider-Man resistance from alternate variants of Peter Parker is downright character assassination. There's Peter B. Parker and an army of other Spider-Man variants that just let Miguel put himself into this position of absolute power over the multiverse and allow him to dictate who lives and dies. Not to mention, this entire movie hinges upon adapting Edge of Time, the video game, without giving Peter or anyone close to Miguel the good head on their shoulders that the Edge of Time Peter had. And because of that, Miguel had to live in a multiverse-sized echo chamber full of our favorite heroes being afraid of him, essentially because he has better technology than them and is more edgy. But if Miguel actually just used the information in front of him and realized that it doesn't add up, the main conflict of this film outside of the Spot's narrative is now gone, and the multiverse only exists in this movie to make the Spot stronger. This movie wouldn't happen at all if someone else was in charge of the Spider Society. If there was a Madam Web, an older Peter Parker, or a Gwen Stacy, anyone with some advanced knowledge of being Spider-Man that was at the center of all of this, this plot would not transpire. In my opinion, this movie's execution feels like a waste of the multiverse, a character assassination of an entire multiverse worth of Spider-Man, and an unnecessary wank for a character that was already pretty popular enough, Spider-Man 2099. And I wish this movie was more than that, because the rest of it is just decent performances and amazing animation. The fight choreography and pacing leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion, and that's because, yeah, the characters may be running from place to place quickly and having these, little interactions with each other, but if the only significant narrative progression that is happening is either happening to a side character that is only going to be saved for the third movie, or to progress comedic slapstick, it's not really fulfilling. By the end of the movie, we end up with one pretty predictable twist, and no real path for the way that the next movie could go outside of Spider-Man versus Spider-Man, and then they're gonna agree and fight the Spot. Ooh. Like, it's so predictable, and I wish that this movie could have been better. I hope Beyond the Spider-Verse handles the multiverse with white gloves like it deserves, and we get a better movie overall because of it. And if you guys like this video, thank you for watching. If you want to support my channel, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and donate to my Cash App so you can decide what I do for either as a YouTube short or for a full-length video. I had to make this video just because I watched the movie and I really wish that I had liked it. If you have any thoughts, opinions, disagreements, counter-arguments, put them down in the description down below or join the Discord. I'm open to what you got to say, but I don't really know how to fix this, really. The multiverse is kind of just broken. They've irreparably connected it to the comics, to the MCU. All of this is now shared in one cosmology. How do you hold all of that to one consistent set of rules across multiple different adaptations and mediums? That is impossible.